All right. So online teaching presence. That's the next session here. We're gonna go over what presence mean. We touched on that yesterday a little bit. However, we'll go into a little more detail on this presence, online presence for faculty, as well as assessment. We're not going to go into authentic assessment, but we're going to go into importance of feedback in online presence, and then instruction. How actually, as an instructor's role, is similar and in online environment. So presence. What does presence mean to you?
Being available.
Physically present.
Available, visible, responsive, accessible. That's great. That's wonderful. Yeah. What aspect? And we'll go into the activities in a bit here. When you say accessible, what does that mean?
If your students are looking for you at a certain time and they're never available during that time that they're available, then you're not accessible.
That's
You
very
can
good.
be 24 hours a day, but I can't get it to you. You have to actually not so rigid.
That was my follow-up question. So accessible means that you are available when students need you. But can it be 24/7?
Reason.
All right. How do we manage that? Yes.
So, actually, some universities have a policy of how often you need to be present
Okay.
and respond to students, because you can be present all the time. It's a 24/7 response. Students choose online because they want to be comfortable doing it at midnight or day, whatever. But at least your presence on the blackboard or whatever LMS system you're using is at least, some universities say at least thrice a week, not every day. But if there's something very urgent you see, you need to respond.
Sure.
If you see something like yesterday, there was a demonstration piece of how students can be, making their own conversation, and it leads into what? Into some disagreement, then we need to engage.
Absolutely. So just, I don't know if online folks have heard that whole comment and addition. There are some universities who provide some policy for or guideline for faculty to be present like 3 times a week. But still keep an eye for any kind of urgent notes. So it's a good best practice. And how do we actually? Is it important to communicate with students? Where can you do that? Syllabus. How many students read syllabus?
If you give them an assignment to read it and they have to respond and then
Yes.
something about it.
Yeah. What other places you can put that information?
I always do
I
it under the
send
tools
adjustments.
section, and I send them an email if I really want them to pay attention to something.
Nice. Yes.
In the introduction, when you do an introduction letter to the course, you specify it, saying that.
Welcome note.
Right, yeah.
That's a good place as well. Yes. Announcements are good.
And maybe
That
your syllabus.
keeps it like attention from students right away. So there are many ways. Yeah, syllabus is very important to put that actually expectation in syllabus as well. But the other tools which are the idea is to try multiple ways, so students actually see it and set the expectation. How about this? Because I'm online, my computer is gonna help me with interaction. Do you think that's the case? So sometimes some newer faculty think actually, yeah, my computer, my software, my technology will take care of it. The idea is that yes, it can help facilitate. Still have to design, plan for it. Rapport building. What's the importance of rapport building? And is that, I'm sorry, engagement.
build trust between the students and the lecturer and among the students.
Excellent point. Building a trust among students and faculty to student. How does it help actually with your facilitation? Online facilitation.
That's the distance that the student may feel because it's not face to face.
Yeah.
So by being present and building rapport, even though you're miles apart, the student will feel engaged and know you're there.
Yeah.
They're not alone on this island.
Excellent.
This educational island.
Yeah, and that's like a transactional distance theory. Is that online student and the content and faculty, they have a transactional distance. So in order to reduce that, you build in this rapport, where you build that trust, as said earlier. Is it how important is to do actually this rapport building in online versus face to face? Are they equally important? Is it more important? Less important?
I think it's equal.
Equal. Yeah.
I actually think it's more important because the students, when they meet you face to face, you have a lot of time for recovery. Let's say some student misses the first few sessions, they will still be able to interact with you later on, whereas with online, because you don't have that continuous face-to-face interaction, what is built at the beginning can really stay for a long time. And if it's not built, it can really create a stronger barrier.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. Because how are we, as you said, in face-to-face, there is a recovery. I can see the body language. I can actually pivot. I can say, oh yeah, it seems like we have some question. But how does that happen in online? So you're right. It's a little more. It's more important to present your persona, your instructional persona and rapport building online, so that they know where you're coming from. Because words sometimes could mean differently and understood and interpreted differently. Yep. All right. We can actually pair up and then discuss how you see you currently build rapport with students face to face, and then how do you do it if you're teaching online? Do online rapport building. So we'll spend like about 2 to 3 minutes, discuss with your partner sitting next to you, and see how do you do currently. All right. So what is how do you build rapport and your face to face, and how is it similar to online?
Students today want to use technology. They have a hard time talking with someone face to face, so they're okay with emailing you, texting you, anything. And they want you to respond like right away.
Okay. So students expect a response, immediate response in online. How about face to face?
Face to face, the same thing.
Face to face, the same. Okay.
Unless you're in the classroom talking to them.
Okay. How is that's a good point. How anyone else? Yes.
I have a comment, and it came out with a conversation I had with my colleague here and with a few colleagues during the break. The break can be very useful.
Yes.
Would you like another one?
We'll take this course out there.
It is not denigrating your presence and your presentation in any way, hopefully. That we were continuing thinking about the points made in this room. And something that many of us said is really necessary is the technology part. Mm-hmm. And the technology part in the sense of interactivity, and especially since the students online cannot see us and they cannot see one another. Mm-hmm. So there has to be, we have to have technology helping us with this collaborating issue, because collaborate is not, from my understanding, and I used it a few years back, but collaborate is not to the point yet that it is exactly the same as in a class, is it?
Exactly the same, no, but teaching online isn't exactly the same.
Right. But you can see the students, perhaps a few students.
Yeah, up to 5 of you can simultaneously be seeing each other.
So that would be a critical element to be able to promote interactivity and face-to-face. It's absolutely necessary that we have some of that in an online class.
Yeah, when I meet with my students using Collaborate, I'm not aiming to meet with all 22 of them at the same time, because that would be wonderful. And honestly, even if Collaborate could do it, me seeing 22 little tiles with their faces is just going to seem like I'm on Celebrity Squares. It's not going to feel like I'm teaching them. So what I do is I poll my students, see what their availability is. I'm shooting for about 6 or 7 students at a time in a session. Ideally, I offer a lot of sessions over the course of the semester. And not all of them are going to want to use their cameras anyway. I mean, I give them the option.
Logistically very difficult in a sense, because you have to replicate what you're saying. If I have 37 students,
Yeah.
so I have to do it 6, 7 times the same lecture, so to say, or interaction. That's a little logistically difficult.
Right.
Sorry.
It is, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the same lecture, though. I mean, you give one on a topic, you record it so that the students who couldn't be there live are there. I don't require that any of my students attend any of the sessions. I incentivize it. Instead, I tell them it'll be an easy way to earn class participation points, things like that. So by the end of the semester, most of my students have attended at least 1 or 2 of the sessions. And no, I don't repeat the same session over and over again, because it would bore me and them out of their minds if I were to do it.
But anyway, so it's not exactly the
No, it's-
exact replication,
You are
but it's very
absolutely right.
useful. It's
Yeah.
very useful to have that. And, we would need training,
Oh, yeah.
as Tricia mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
We're here. They pay me to do it and everything.
Yeah. So, your instructional that brought a good point about it's not replicating the same thing as face-to-face or online. It's important to think about what your goals are, what you want students to achieve out of that activity and experience, and then actually see what tools and technology can help you get there. Yeah. So I think you addressed that pretty well. To record some sessions, and then make it available for others who could not join. And there are some tools. I know, like a voice thread, for example, is a tool that can be used to create actually a classroom, a discussion board, where you can use your cell phone, record your video. Like right now, I can record a little video and post it as a response. Or you can share a document. You can share an audio file. So you can put it actually so that it feels like more opportunities in different ways students can participate. I may be a shy student. I just want text. Another student wants to, it's fine, that's short, they want to be on video. So there are modalities are available within that same tool. So there are tools available to create that online community. So, yes.
One of my issues with online, and I have taught other classes online, is I feel like the thing that's really missing is the networking.
Networking.
The networking and the connection, not between the students and myself. They seem to feel like they have a strong connection with me, and I'm happy about that. But the connection with each other, that's missed from the face-to-face. And I mean, I can try to design group projects or, whatever, but that's what I feel is really missing every time I teach online. And I don't know if there's a good solution for that.
Yeah, so there is actually a slide over there for student-to-student interaction. We can go over that a little bit more. But one of the faculty back there, what's your name, sir? Lydia? Yeah. So you want to share faculty lounge idea or student, I call it learner lounge, an online.
The faculty class lounge, okay.
Yeah.
Alright, so basically it's just a folder that where the students can go and open out the lounge. And then they can post something that is interesting to the topic of discussion. Or like how I use it also is I tell them is this week we're going to discuss cardiovascular system or cardiac system. And so I say, I don't want every student to repeat the same topic. So I want you to post in advance what you're going to discuss for next week. So I don't want to read heart failure all through. I don't want to read MI all through. So each student has to choose a different topic. So the student who posts first gets precedence. That means she did declare her topic. So the student second or 10th person says, no, I want to do heart failure again. But that student will not ask to.
My
You are
issue
also
isn't the
sharing.
academic though,
Yeah.
it's the community.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's a second part to it.
That's-
It's like that's also a place, it's a lounge where they can come and also discuss things like they went on a trip. And what did they learn or what did they bring to the class? Or they have something, interesting, a baby's born or something. They can,
But do they? Because my students don't want to do it.
some do and some don't. It depends. And like especially Thanksgiving, sometimes they will post recipes.
Recipes for yeah. So that was a good example there. Yes.
Yeah,
Actually, what I do the same thing, and sometimes they would ask questions like, in terms of the paper that they're writing. So there's back and forth, so that's where I do the clarification.
Sure.
So it has been very helpful because I've done it in the past.
Absolutely. I understand your point. And lots of research shows that if there are no points associated, adult learners are not going to take time to just share those kind of like personal things. So there got to be some kind of a connection and purpose attached. What I do is I bring in sometimes, I have that launch, as well as I bring in actually an expert speaker, for example, and that's recorded. And then they can actually say, okay, how can you make network? I ask them to actually see and post LinkedIn profiles there. So you can actually network with other folks and give me actually 5 people from your network. And that's where it's something in for me. And that's where as a student I go in and then just look at those 5 profiles and then send a request to connect. So there are some activities you can build in that free form discussion area where there is something for everybody to build that network, not internally but also externally with other folks for their future jobs or professional needs. Yes.
Just because, that's really interesting what she shared, but I still don't understand what's the difference between a discussion board and that launch? Is there a difference?
It's different because in a discussion board, they are posting the discussion for the week, which is going to be evaluated with a rubric. Whereas there, it's not being evaluated. They can discuss and they will worse what things that they, and it's not counted towards, they don't have to follow APA format, things like that.
We just talked about
Yes.
maybe let's
Yeah.
have a study meet on this and this, because we talk about this, so they do have like meetings from online by themselves. They meet at Starbucks, I would read that, like the students will say, oh, it's time to study, let's have a group. We can meet at this place and this place. So they kind of have like, oh, I had a question about this. So they talk amongst each other. If they weren't unsure about such and such assignment. So they have their own little student lounge. And then there's a faculty lounge where they post questions to the faculty and everyone can see.
Is that a misconception?
It's at the bottom, like
It's
it's
like
a
the
different
icon.
tab.
It's a different
Different
tab.
tab.
Yeah, it's a different tab
So-
from the discussion board.
Yeah.
Actually, I labeled it as student cafe, so,
That's great. Yeah.
And actually, they created, IT creates it for you. Every course will have a student lounge or whatever you want to call it. They create it.
So as you are building this rapport and then building your presence, what are some of the unique things about online as far as the design, delivery, and the process is concerned? So design-wise, what is different in online than face-to-face to build a rapport, being present?
It's not necessarily synchronous.
It's not. synchronous?
I think face-to-face is more of a lecture, it's discussion. Online, it's not necessarily a lecture. You can definitely post a video or a podcast or something, but you have to be more creative in terms of content delivery. So maybe you want to do a blog, a discussion board. You have to be very creative in the ways that you deliver the information. It's not necessarily a lecture in the traditional sense of lectures we're accustomed to.
Sure.
So the design is totally different.
Yeah. Do you have, what are your thoughts about this?
I think it's tough.
It is tough?
Very tough. Especially we're in the sales school. And we're the only university in New Jersey offering a 4-year degree in sales. Sales is a contact sport. It's not done technology-wise. It's not done over the phone all the time. And it's done one-to-one. And you can't do one-to-one if someone's in China and you're over here trying to teach how to do one-to-one. There's cultural differences, there's all kinds of regional differences in the country.
Yeah.
And it's tough to do that. And so you really need the contact.
Yeah. So could you?
I can hear.
Oh, so the challenge is that in sales there's a requirement, so to speak, to have that contact with each other. And how do you define contact?
People read body language. You can't read this much of the person in total, right?
I don't know. I would disagree with you pretty severely on that. You can read body language. If you're doing a Zoom, I've done Zoom with presidents of universities, and I see from here up, you can say what they do. But then you make the face-to-face. But I do understand there's some of the challenges with that, but that component of it, that's not is that just one course that's within the MBA program? No, because that's an undergrad, right?
We have graduate and undergraduate.
Right, but currently that's not slated for
Currently for the online.
Right.
We're doing
Of course.
Required upper core course.
Right.
Right.
So I think you're right. It is difficult. However, you can accomplish what you're trying to accomplish with different means. One is about video conferencing. There you can probably tell and get about 80% of body language from here and up. I understand there are still 20% that you will miss. What are other ways you can actually get that? You could have actually a prompts for them to, you ask this question about for example, cultural diversity. You can have some prompts for them to address that and then get their perspective, they get their position on that. So each student can provide their video presentation on that. That way you know actually what words they're using, how they're presenting, what is their kind of biases and non-biases are. That's where you can actually gather more data on student, know actually where they're coming from. It's even more powerful from even face-to-face sometimes, because you are collecting some more data. Artificial intelligence, you brought it up yesterday. That's huge.
And and I think that we should have another one-off conversation. There are other tools that you can use when I from around sales organizations that we did remote. You did everything remotely where they practice and they submitted. And you could see how much they actually, and you could tie it into an LMS system, and you could see actually how many times they practiced, and then what they submitted to you. Right? You have rubrics, and you can grade it. So there's lots of there are tools that are available. We can.
They do it electronically.
All electronic. Oh yeah. I ran an organization of 75 people and trained online. How to get their mission statements, value propositions, how they did all that. And I could say, Kashif, he practiced 15 times, but when he submitted was spot on. Or you'd have some people, you'd say they only practiced once and submitted once, and it showed. So, but you only see the final product. So there's lots of tools out there. But if that's a big part of that, is that the RPS? Right? So if that's a big component, we could talk about what modalities are out there.
Yeah, Chris, this is a wonderful discussion because actually the IPEN strategy, which is the sales-oriented course for the MBA students, is being offered and is actually being offered in the first semester. And
right off the bat.
And
Yeah.
every
Ah,
so
okay.
I think this is a great
Yeah,
discussion,
yeah.
and we
Yep.
definitely have to
That's wonderful.
look into it
Yeah.
and see. And I would like to add that a lot of the interactions are peer-to-peer.
Right.
So if we think about different platforms that they can actually do the role plays peer-to-peer and video recording and then do whatever assignment is,
Right.
attached to that exercise, these are going to be really helpful in terms of making sure that
Maybe
that
you want to
course is
visit a
delivered.
business school and see our labs.
Yeah.
What we have set up.
So-
Sure.
Yeah, no, I think that's great.
Yep.
So there are tools available, and then we can, instructional designers can help work with you and as well.
Yeah, we are definitely interested in
Yeah, we can
having
talk about
more
that.
detailed instruction.
All right, I'm gonna move forward. Interest of time, I'm gonna move, skip that. That other next activity is a little more in more detail. What we already have discussed. That's why I'm skipping that. Community of inquiry model. How many of you are familiar with this model? This was actually a model framework that was created by University of Alberta professors, Anderson, Garrison. What they're talking about here is that to build a community and educational experience, there are three components for educational experiences. One is the cognitive presence. Another one is a teaching presence. And then third is a social presence. And how it's accomplished? The cognitive presence is how the content you design and the students, they interact with that content. That's where the cognitive presence is. Teaching presence is, we talked earlier about teaching presence. How you share your experiences as faculty, how you connect with students. That's how you are providing that teaching presence and have focused discussions in there. And social presence is where you create an environment for your students. So that is as a risk-free environment. It's for everybody, is available actually and is welcome and in participation. Build that student-to-student interaction community as well. So those are the three kind of pillars that make up for the educational experience. The types of interaction, again, there are three types. I usually add a fourth one as well, which is fine. We'll just stick with this, what the theorists have come up with. Faculty-student interaction. That's when you are interacting and engaging with your student in an online environment. Student-to-student interaction we discussed earlier about how to build that. And then student-to-content. And that's how they are interfacing with content. Could you share an example of student-to-resources? What would be a good example of that interaction?
I make my students go look up data on the website.
Students go look up data on site. Yeah, that's
Video.
or video. Absolutely. Yep. So faculty-student interaction. That's where you want to design a student-centric environment where everybody's welcome. You feel like you build a rapport. You have actually a very clear expectation set up with students and a communication strategy with them, and provide actually some helpful tips as well for students. What are some of the kind of helpful tips that you can provide to your students to be successful in online course when you are doing your faculty-student interaction? We discussed some of that earlier.
Staying on time.
Staying on time, immediacy. That's like an immediate kind of response, or relatively setting that expectation so that you have immediate response. Yes.
Just to back up one step, what I do is I put announcements on a timer. So that I know, with mapping out the course, I map out my announcements also. So that therefore, every day they see something And you know what it's going to be. It's going to be, it's time to start picking up on your discussion board comments. It's time to do this, time to do and then I may edit them if somebody sends an email with a specific question. But that establishes, it gives an illusion. It is an illusion, obviously, but that I'm always there. Because every day they get one. I've had to, like, if I was away at a conference and going to miss a day or two, it still goes see.
Yes. Yeah. So that's a good use of automation too, where you could actually have those announcements set, so they are released Monday or Sunday nights of every week, and that's where your summary is for that week, that module. So it goes out, and you can optimize your time and scale yourself with that. There are some tips like that. That's a very good example there. Student to student, we had actually earlier question and discussion about how we can build actually that student interaction. There are different types of activities. Again, discussion is one. However, they could be like think, pair, share. Anybody knows what that is?
You just did it.
Ooh.
Did
Yep, that's absolutely right. So your faculty provides the content, and students think on their own, and then they share with each other, and then they share with the rest of the.
Square two.
Yep. Peer critique, another way where they actually look at individual's work, and one student actually critiques another's. What's good about that's important. Sometimes critique. Some students, they take it as criticism, which is only like to look at what's not working there. So you want to be clear about that. What's good, what you can build on, and what could be an area of opportunity. Debate. I think Carrie mentioned yesterday about the debates as well. So that adds another way to build that communication and student-to-student interaction. And I agree with Carrie. I do the same thing. I like actually to know individuals, the students, what their stance is, and then I want them to actually give me reasons for the other side of the debate. That helps them to open up in mind, think differently, put themselves in a different stance and perspective. Learner Lounge, and we heard about that example earlier too. So I do actually provide lounges. It's like a free, frequently asked question area. However, I keep actually every other week, I try to bring in actually something which is unique, which is helpful for personal professional development for my students. That could be a guest speaker coming in and presenting at a certain time, and then they record it. Student can ask questions. Or it could be like share 5 LinkedIn, and if you are a finance major, give me like 5 CFOs LinkedIn profile that you are connected to. And if students are not, if they find actually ways to connect. So that way actually you can see that there's always something actually there for students to get there and then participate. Any other examples? It's not an exhaustive list, as you can tell.
That have students create blogs and
Blogs.
they follow each other and connect up there.
A wonderful way to do that too. Yes, blogging. That's another good area where that's a short, mini kind of posting that you can post, and then there's a blog going on. And students can. It's not that it's there for free sites that you can actually have blogs, and that could be published too, university too. Any other ways to have that student interaction?
But obviously, I mentioned we do role plays.
Role plays, yeah, absolutely. That's another great way to prepare your students for real work. So that's another very good.
But the students think they can take an online course and get away with not doing a presentation at the end. Right. Not mine. I have them just narrate the PowerPoint.
Yes.
Prepare the same PowerPoint, but narrate it.
Yeah.
And that is student to student. They
right.
watch each other's PowerPoints. They're narrated PowerPoints.
Excellent, excellent. That's wonderful. Good. Student resources, we have already talked some. videos. Those are examples. There could be some general resources available for time management, writing help, those kind of general kind of resources, or very specifically subject matter videos and case studies, role plays, and those kind of information, textbook chapters, etc. Assessments and feedback, and you heard about assessment earlier in this morning's session. This is again, try to help actually design as authentic assessment as possible, because these are adult learners. They're trying to either excel in their profession, or they are trying to actually change a lane or become one profession. So either way, they need very practical kind of assignments that will use those assignments as almost their portfolio when they go and interview for a job. And provide options. Again, be open about there are many ways to demonstrate their competencies. Expectation need to be clear. Frequently asked questions that help actually clarify any questions that students may have about assessments. Reminders, announcements that could be posted to keep them on track. Again, I think we discussed briefly yesterday in a small team yesterday was that World Economic Forum's data shows that 65% of the jobs, they don't exist today, which will be in 2030. So 65% of the current jobs, we don't even know what the jobs are going to be in 10 years. That's mind-boggling. So what do we do with that? How do we prepare our students for 2030? It's going to be high-order thinking skills. Because we know with artificial intelligence, that's actually they're going to be fine with finding information. That's not big deal. Calculating, that's not big deal. It's about actually where to find relevant, reliable information, how to actually create and make it relevant to the problem they're trying to solve. It's a problem-solving skills, critical thinking skills. So that's where I get a little passionate about that topic, but but that's actually the purpose of actually bringing to the next kind of level. We want to prepare our students with that higher order thinking skills. And expectation. You set the bar over here, what will happen to your students' work? If you set the bar up here, then it will actually higher. So communicate a little higher expectation so that you get actually students that are more sharp. You don't want to bring it up there either. You don't want to frustrate students either. So that's about assessments. Feedback. Yeah. That's just like, so that's like a, I'm allergic, so I'm not giving feedback. But since we're, yes. Feedback. Want to provide timely, comprehensive feedback. And comprehensive does not mean, what does comprehensive mean? That's it.
So responding to their discussion, it has to be addressing what they're asking or what they just posted, and maybe adding something more to enrich it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. How much, if you are asking them to turn in a project or a paper, how much comprehensive feedback you want to provide on the paper? You want to kind of mark it up, the whole paper for them? You don't want to do that for two reasons. One is, humanly it's kind of like it's a taxing on me to provide word by word and full markup. One thing. Other is, I'm not helping students that much. I'm giving them actually everything that they need to do, and then they will change that and bring it back. They're not learning how to critique their own work. So usually what I do, in my feedback, I take actually, I go over the paper or the project, I look at themes, what are the themes that they need to work on. First, I appreciate actually what they've done really well, in themes, and then what actually they need to work on. And then first instance for each of those themes, where that is, as an example, I provide a comment. So you can provide in-text comment in a Word file, a PowerPoint, or whatever format they're turning in the assignment. You can put that in text so that they can see right there highlighted and say, okay, yeah, this one needs a transition in this paper, or this needs more support. I give one or two examples and then leave it there, and then let them actually say, okay, go over the rest of the paper and then provide me more information about that. So that's how I. Any other ways that you can make it more efficient and effective for feedback? What are some other ways? That's not much different than actually doing it on face-to-face classroom. It's a teaching methodology. Yes?
I mean, if you're grading a paper, you use the rubric and make comments against the rubric.
Excellent. Excellent. And that's another one, I think it's the next slide too, is creating actually a clear expectation and rubric. That's why in online courses, online education, most of the time is spent actually designing. That's actually, if you design it real well, you spend a lot of time there, then facilitation is not as, you can scale your facilitation or instruction. And if it's a clear rubric, you have criteria and you have different levels, and then levels are explicitly giving an exact information about each of the level. That way students know what you're expecting, and when you have time to provide feedback, you can go to that cell, almost copy that, and then provide that to student that, yeah, you are right here, you want to work on these three other things. Yes?
Actually, you could also do that in discussion board. Use the discussion board rubric weekly, and that's what you return. Did they post completely, answer all the questions? Are they okay with the APA citation? Were they timely with their responses? That type of thing.
Yep, that's great. All right. How do we currently meet the need of diverse learners?
Teaching strategies.
I'm sorry?
Multiple teaching strategies.
Multiple teaching strategies, such as?
Well, you have different types of learners, and so your teaching strategies should mirror that. Like, not everybody wants to read text. Some people like videos. Some people like pictures. Some people like acronyms. So you have to mix it to reach your diverse audience, and you can do that online as well.
That's great. Yeah. So students learn differently, and you want to provide a variety of modalities. Anyone else? Any other example how you can actually work with diverse learners? Yes.
You could provide them with a variety of assessments and let them choose one that they feel most comfortable.
That's great.
Ask them if you can fold them. That's why I asked them, how do you usually learn? Do you texture? Do you want to feel? Do you want to work with? Do you want to see it first? Do you want to hear it first? No, we're all. So I ask them. And usually, they know.
Yeah. So that's great. What's a challenge with online course in that respect? And how you can accomplish that in online? In other words, how you accomplish that? Because in face-to-face, I can actually adjust on the spot. In online, you have actually designed a course ahead of time. So how can you actually...
So I feel that we have to have different ways that we're going to meet the needs of the students. Whether it's online or whether it's just hearing or
Yep. No, you're right on. So there is we can actually go and cover another topic, which is universal design. I think UDL, from the education folks, they have heard about it. That is where it is. And you design different ways to present information, and you design different ways to assess students. So that's where it accommodates different learning styles, different types of learners. personalities, etc.
Right, to help facilitate that, and as they're creating their materials, they could use Ally, which is built into Blackboard, to check the accessibility of their documents.
Yes.
UDL is wonderful, especially if you're starting from scratch, to make sure that your materials are already equally accessible to different types of learners. But I imagine for a lot of people, it's going to be more a matter of accessibility, the universal design. So this can at least help you recognize what accessibility issues might exist for the content that's there and how to resolve it. And then, of course, there's those of us in the CTT here, and I'm sure the instructional design team at AP could assist you.
Yeah. So Ally, what is Ally?
Me, Ben. Blackboard Ally is a tool that's built into all course and organization shells in Blackboard. Each time you upload a piece of content to Blackboard, you'll notice there's a little gauge to the right of it. It has a red indicator if something is very much not accessible, green one if it is accessible. Only you see those indicators. It's not trying to embarrass you in front of your students or anything like that. But beyond it providing you with step-by-step instructions on how to resolve accessibility issues, it also, even if you do nothing at all, allows your students to download alternate formats of the documents that you've uploaded into Blackboard. So what's nice about that is it's not just about people with disabilities. I like, when I watch TV, having captions on. Other people like hearing audiobooks, right? It doesn't necessarily have to do with the fact that I do or don't have a disability. It allows for just good user experience design.
And that's a great, that's a great tool. I'm glad you are using it here because for courses that need to be ADA compliant for DOE's purposes and even financial aid purposes too. To be
What is its name again?
Ally.
Ally.
L-I?
A-L-L-Y. Ally. Look, I'm on your side.
So some of the, again, the under building, actually designing, it's about respecting students where they're coming from. What is their expertise? I heard actually back this morning, I think, about pairing up a project with certain types of students, which they are actually interested in. So that's another way to see, okay, Chris, you are amazing with marketing. Could you actually help us present on a topic or prepare a topic? You are actually amazing with artificial intelligence topic and sales. So find actually what every student has strengths and help them actually to facilitate, shares their knowledge as well. Different ways, we touch on that, different ways of learning and teaching and learning and assessing as well. One of the biggest thing actually for online student to make them successful is clear instruction. And that's a huge thing actually to make it actually for both reasons. One is the student experience and for you not to be bombarded with lots of questions. And that's where your ID team can be actually really helpful to see actually from a student's perspective what instructions are needed. So and as you're teaching as well, just help clarify this question up front. And then we talked yesterday about busy work. It's always like, okay, answer to this discussion question and post it to other students. If it's happening without any good open-ended discussion, relevant discussion question, that's a busy work. Students don't like it, nobody likes that. Variety, and we covered that actually, active learning. And that's, what do we mean by active learning? Engagement. How do you bring that engagement?
And they seek out the answers, like self-intimate analysis, application versus just receiving the knowledge, the data or information.
Engaging and active, a higher order thinking. Yeah. What is some example? What is one example? Give me one example of active learning. In online environment or face to face.
Participating. students participating.
More open-ended questions rather than.
Open-ended question. Are we doing some active learning here in this section? Oh, what are we doing?
Having
Share.
Exactly.
Because with the discussion, the
Yeah.
discussions that are being held and how they respond to it.
Yep. Having discussion, open-ended discussion, and then response to. There's some action oriented. That's where active learning happens. Choice. We talked about choices, giving students choices too, and time and task. That's important as well because we want students actually to get the workload actually relevant work on timely manner. Provide that feedback on that. Some of the types of activities in your classroom experience, there are a bunch of lists that like case studies you could have interactive animations, problem-based learning, a collaborative session, games. These are different types of activities you could choose from. Of course, you don't want to put everything in your one course, but it's relevant. And how do we determine actually what activity to use? And when?
Depends on the learning outcome.
Depends on what?
The learning outcome.
Learning outcomes. Excellent.
And the content.
And the content, type of content. Great. Learning outcomes, what do you want students to accomplish? And then look at the content that they need to learn or apply or do something with it. And then match it with what actually strategy would work, what activity would work best. All right, so effective facilitation, just in a summary here, we talked about setting expectations with students. Clear expectation is important. It's in the syllabus, it's in the announcement, it's in discussion, welcome note, time and task, and timely feedback, where we provide, as a faculty, we want to set that expectation when they will get feedback on different types of activities. So students, when they turn in, a student who is turning in a work over the weekend, so on Friday, they are expecting actually maybe like right away. And if you want to give them, okay, you will get feedback by within 24 hours or 48 hours. That's setting an expectation. The feedback is important. Active learning, that's where, as instruction, that's what we talked about, providing some more higher order thinking skills. Diverse learning, accommodate for diversity of learning styles and types of learners. Contact, be available, be accessible, have contact or perceived availability, just like you do. and then collaborative and cooperation, build that. So that everybody feels welcome to the online course. Everybody feels that they are valued and they're available. One real quick actually about this model. Again, this is Rena and Pal and Pratt's community building. What they say is that with community interaction and feedback through active creation of knowledge and meaning, that's like active learning that we discussed earlier. Then collaborative learning, how you become actually a facilitator. Teamwork and mutual negotiation guidelines, that's a collaboration. And then focused outcome and shared goals. When students have their shared goals, they understand what the goals are, they will actually work to help each other. Okay, so there are 3 phases here for the facilitation and building actually that activity. One is in the design phase, when you are working with your instructional designer. You are building actually activities, you're providing clear instructions, you're designing activities that align with learning outcomes. Then you go to the, during the course when you are facilitating, how you engage with students, how to be present, how to provide feedback. And then the evaluation, where you do want to, in online facilitation, you do want to periodically check how things are going. And there are some tools that we can actually share with you too, there are polling tools, for example. Blue Pulse is an example, where you can actually post a poll after week 1, I do that to my class. After week 1, I do post a poll, like a 2-question, 3-question poll, where they tell me about how things are going. Are they clear about expectation? How they're feeling? That helps actually for me to understand that I have actually designed it well, or there are some misconceptions. I gather so much data, and then I alter and refine my instruction. Yes, Ken.
This is easily done. We do have a campus-wide license for Qualtrics survey software.
Oh.
And we can show everybody how to use that. It's very intuitive. It's very easy to set up. And I did that with my own class this fall. It was face-to-face, but I asked them all how it was doing, and they were surprisingly honest. It was refreshing, and I was able to change direction on a few things.
Oh, nice.
Yep. That's great. Qualtrics is amazing, very powerful tool. All right. Any questions? Yes.
When we were talking about active learning, one of the things that I have used in classes is using this reverse classroom concept. That at some point I felt like I cannot lecture all the time, so I had the students actually also presenting some parts of the textbook during the class. In my online classes, I have that similarly, like when they present the case studies and things like that. Do you guys have any tips on that? Like because it's always easy for me to lecture an article or a book chapter, but I really think when they teach to each other and they read something and they understand it to a level that they can teach it, that really helps with that concept of active learning. Any tips? Do you have any experience doing that?
Absolutely. I think I mentioned earlier, I do actually look at in week, find out actually where my students are, what their strengths are, and then for each week, then I actually assign Chris for marketing, for example, if there's a marketing topic or whatever topic it is, and then have him create like a 3-minute presentation. Give me the summary, high-level summary of the week's key points. What that does is help to actually motivate, and they actually, if it's a larger class, then I make them into smaller groups, and then they can present to the smaller group, and then actually it's also available for everybody, but then you kind of try to have more topics and more people present on different topics that way. But that actually really helps them to, 1, feel valued, 2, they're actually now really knowing actually more. As we know, teaching actually is the best way to learn. So that's what's happening, and then other students, they get a diversity, many ways to learn. They get a diversity of perspective how that each individual is teaching that content in those 3 to 5 minutes. Any other ideas, thoughts from anyone else? Because there are many ways to accomplish that. Yes.
The question is that has anybody encountered an issue with online learning? Like it's pure online, it's not hybrid and online. It's not a hybrid course where students are not receptive to a scheduled online class by the faculty. Like if you say, okay, we're going to meet at this time, they're not open to it. They say we have chosen online because we want the flexibility. Has anybody experienced that issue? Because you can't, actually this is what I have encountered, you can't schedule a meeting and say you need to be present, especially with online, because nursing especially, they work different shifts. So they came back and they said, actually they went back to the school and said, we can't do this because we have chosen online because we want the flexibility.
Absolutely.
So you cannot really use some of those tools which we are talking about. You can record a lecture and post it there for them to view it at their own space, but you cannot expect every student to be present
at the same time. Synchronous. So the way the programs are, even and Chris, help me out. These programs are marketed as to students setting that expectation that it is an asynchronous online program. So there's no, we should not, as faculty, should not have that expectation with students to be present at the same time.
Correct.
So that's actually, so the way is to actually kind of what you're saying. If you have a certain guest speaker you have to find if you can have a poll from the students, and majority of students, whatever time works for them, you actually schedule at that time, or schedule it and then record it.
Record it, yeah.
And then have a discussion. Actually, you could actually do a discussion on based on that. And my earlier comment about how I've done in the past my courses is that I bring in guest speaker, they present, and I have a follow-up questions for students based on that, so that they actually, even if they missed it, they have to watch that and then benefit from it. So yeah, any other ideas about that asynchronous? All right. So how are we doing time-wise?
11:09.
11:09. Let's take about 5-minute break, and we'll be up with the next session. That is
Creative videos.
videos.
Video.